Once, a long time ago, there was an old man who was walking from one town to the other. That morning, he had bought some cheese and some bread and a sausage for his supper. Put them in his backpack. Now, in the old days, long time ago, before your grandparents' grandparents were born, when people traveled, they could stop at someone's house. And they'd ask the person, can I sleep in the barn? Or do you have room by the fireplace if it was a cold night? And people almost always said yes, because people were friendly. Because people knew that you're a neighbor and you're a neighbor, but also they're neighbors to you too, even if they live far away. We're all neighbors. And the old man was starting to get a little hungry, wanted to have his supper in his backpack, and he saw the sun was going down, he started to get chilly, and he saw this big house up on a hill. So he walked up to the house and he knocked, and a woman answered. And she had a face that came to a point, as if all the meanness inside her was trying to get out through her nose. And she said, what do you want? He said, well, madam, I was wondering if I could sleep in your barn, or perhaps even by the fireplace tonight. And she looked at him and said, get off my property, or I'll sick the dogs on you. He said, I understand. And he walked past the house, into the lane, and he traveled again. But as he turned the bend in the road, there it was, a little cottage, and from the cottage was coming music, singing. He said, now these people sound a little friendlier. So he knocked at the door. This time a young boy opened, about your age. And he looked at the old man, and in those days, a sign of respect was to call someone that old, grandfather or grandmother. He said, grandfather, what can I do for you? And the old man said, can I sleep in your shed tonight? And the boy said, no, you can't. You sleep in the house with us. It's warmer. And he took the old man by the hand and brought him into the house. And there were 4 other children surrounding a mother who was sitting in a chair, and they were all singing. They were very poor. You could tell. The furniture had been repaired. It was a very clean house, but you could tell they were very poor. The carpets were all worn out. The table had been scrubbed, but you could see where it was getting old and gouged. And the kids' clothes had been patched over and over and over and over and over again, where you couldn't tell what was real and what was a patch. And so, she turned around and she said, welcome. She said, we don't have much to eat, but we do have some cold oatmeal. And the old man looked at the children, and they looked so hungry. And he said, I've already eaten. You can have some of my food. And he reached in that pack and took out that loaf of bread, and that big square of cheese, and that big piece of sausage, and he put it down. He says, you can share this. And so, they started eating. And the kids' faces lit up. They hadn't had that kind of food in a long time. As the children ate, the old man looked at the mother and said, let me ask you a question. How did you come to be like this? And she said, we used to own the big house on the hill. But after my 5th baby was born, my husband was killed in an accident on the farm. We didn't have much money. And then one child got sick, and another child got sick, and another child, and soon we had to sell the farm. I was a seamstress, too. I used to make clothes for everybody around in all the villages, but I don't even have enough cloth to buy to make clothes for my own children. I have no money, no cloth. And the old man, he nodded his head. And he put down his bedroll. He was going to sleep there for the fireplace. But the young man who had asked him to come in said, oh, grandfather, you can't sleep on the floor. You take my bed, and I'll sleep on the floor. And so the old man slept in the boy's bed, and the boy slept on the floor. The next morning, he had some coffee and toast, and the woman of the house walked into the gate. And when they got to the gate, he turned to her, and he said, you've been so kind to me, I'm going to give you a gift. And the woman said, I wasn't kind because I wanted a gift. And the old man said, oh, I know. If you had been, you wouldn't be getting it. He said, your gift today is whatever you do, first thing today, you'll do all day. The woman thought, what a strange thing to say to me. But he walked away and she waved, and she walked into the house, and she thought as she walked into the house, maybe she could find a little scrap of cloth to make something for one of the kids. Maybe a a handkerchief, a scarf, something. So she went to the box where she always kept her cloth when she was a seamstress, and she reached deep into the box, but she didn't pull out a scrap. She pulled out the most beautiful silk she'd ever seen. Yard after yard after yard after yard after yard of silk. Red silk, yellow silk, blue silk, white silk, black silk, brown silk, all the colors of the rainbow. And she kept pulling, and it never ended. It just kept coming out of the box. And it filled the whole floor of the cabin, every single inch. And then it kept coming, and it came all the way up to their knees. And when it got to their knees, it changed to wool. Warm, strong wool that would keep them warm all winter. And she pulled, and all the different colors came up, and tweeds, all the wool came up, and it kept coming and coming and coming till it got up to their waist. By now, the kids were jumping off the table into the cloth. They were having a great time, and she kept pulling, and now it turned to cotton. Beautiful cotton cloth, different patterns, different colors, and she's pulling and pulling and pulling and pulling, and it's up to their necks, and she's still pulling. Now, in the meantime, she had asked her oldest son if he would go up on the hill and ask the woman who bought the house for a measuring stick so she could make clothes. And he went up and knocked on the door, and that woman whose face came to a point and all the meanness was coming out her nose said, "What do you need a measuring stick for? You don't have anything." And the young man told her the story of how the old man had given his mother a gift. The first thing she did, she'd do it all day, and how she's been pulling cloth out of an empty box all day. And the woman thought, that should have been my gift. And she gave the boy the measuring stick, and he went back to his mother. But she told her servants, "Go get that old man and bring him back." And the servant said, "What if he doesn't want to come back?" "If he doesn't come back, you don't have a job." So they ran after him, and they begged the old man, "Oh, please, grandfather, come with us. She'll fire us. We won't have anywhere to live." And so he decided to come back. And as they passed that cottage, the sun was just going down, and that woman with those children was pulling out the last of the cloth. And she had so much cloth that she could make all her children new clothes. She could make clothes that she could sell in the villages, and they'd never be poor again. But the woman up at the hill, with the pointy face, she was waiting. "Oh, grandfather, it was so good to see you. I have a big dinner made for you." And it was a wonderful dinner. And then she said, "You can sleep in this bedroom with a big bed." And it was warm with a fireplace in the bedroom. Thick blankets. Oh, the old man felt great. Next morning she had a bath ready for him. He took a bath. They washed his clothes. He was so happy. He had breakfast. He stayed for lunch. He stayed for supper. He stayed for 3 days. And the woman kept saying, "When's he going to leave? I want my gift." And finally, on the morning of the 4th day, he said, "I'll be leaving after breakfast." And she went, "Oh, good. Now I'll get my present." And she walked him to the door. And she said, "Do I get my present now?" And he said, "Oh, yes." And with a smile that was half sly and half disappointed, he said, "Whatever you do first thing today, you'll do all day." And he walked away. Now, she knew what she was going to do. Up in the attic, in the rafters, she had hidden a box. In the box were some gold coins. She was going to count gold coins all day. And by the end of the day, she'd be rich because they'd multiply. So she ran upstairs to the attic, and she pulled that box, but the box was covered in dust. And it fell into her face. And she, "Achoo!" sneezed. "Achoo!" And she sneezed again. And she kept sneezing. And she sneezed louder and louder and louder and louder. She sneezed till the dogs ran away. She sneezed till the cows stopped giving milk. The hens stopped laying eggs. And she still sneezed. And she sneezed and she sneezed till the windows shook in the attic and they all broke. She sneezed till the barn fell down. The servants ran away. Everyone left. The house shook every time she sneezed. And finally, she sneezed so hard that the whole house fell down around her. And when the sun went down, she sneezed one more time. And when she did, she looked around at the ruin of her house and barn, and she sighed. And something happened. Her face wasn't pinched into a point anymore. It looked normal, because she learned her lesson, and she changed her life. And that's the story of